Well, welcome everybody to the MACC Policy Board meeting. For the record, today is January 10, 2022, and we are at the Riley Street Fire Station. Hope you all had good New Year's, and we're looking forward to good things in 2022. We'll start with the introductions on my right.
Terry Nienhuis with Holland Township.
Walters, MDOT statewide planning, filling in for Jeff Franklin.
Nathan Bach, City of Holland. Tyler Kent, MDOT Grand Region.
Russ Style, the MACC Authority Board.
Andy Cooper, Lakeshore Advantage.
Ken DeWeer, Fillmore Township.
John Klein Haxville, Allegheny County Road Commission.
Howard Bauman, Fort Sheldon Township.
Jim Gerard, Park Township.
Tom Bird, Ottawa Road Commission.
Pankaj Rajadhyaksh with the MACC.
Judy Fisher, MACC.
And a couple team members back there from MACC and ODC.
Mara Garrity with the MACC. Kelly Goward with ODC Network.
And Steve Bolthouse with Holland Township.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and the next item up, we have approval of the minutes. If there are any questions or corrections on the minutes, please let us know. If none, if I can get motion to approve and the support.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes, minutes are approved. Any comments from the public? Nobody here. All right, so we will move into the transportation program. We'll flip-flop on the agenda. We will go with the 2022 safety performance measures first.
Yes. All right, good afternoon, everyone. So for those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Mara Garrity. I am the transportation planner here at the MACC. Like Pankaj said, we're going to go ahead and flip-flop the first two items because the last three, MDOT's going to be presenting on those. So the first thing that we have up is the 2022 safety performance measures. Let me just get to that really quick. All right, so if you've served on this committee previously, this will look familiar to you. So every year, MDOT is federally required to set safety performance measures, and these are this year's performance measures that you can see up here on the screen. They were approved on August 27th, 2021, and after those are approved, the MPOs then have 180 calendar days to either accept or come up with their own safety performance measures. So MDOT had provided the MACC with their safety performance measures on August 27th, and we now have until February 27th, 2022 to decide on our MPO safety performance measures. At the December 13th, 2021 Technical Advisory Committee meeting, it was moved to recommend to the Policy Board to support these safety performance measures, and we are looking for a motion to support the 22 safety performance measures targets and accept the resolution 2201 that is found in your packet.
I'll move that.
Who was the first?
Tom.
Tom Bird.
I'll second that.
And that was Howard?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Tyler Kent to present the three TIP amendments that we have. These are all MDOT projects, so here you go, Tyler. Yep.
All right, thanks for doing the switcheroo there. Appreciate it. So I'm going to be up here for a couple minutes. Good or bad news. Can you hear me all right? All right, perfect. So Marla, can you switch to the tip amendments page there? So kind of usual normal tip amendment procedures here. Oh, I had it here the whole time. So I told you I'd mess it up. Couple of projects here that we have, cost increases and one new phase. So the first one is US 31 Central Avenue to 36th Street. That is That project came to be a couple years ago because we have some of that bonding money that freed up our traditional programming money, so that project is kind of aligned with a reconstruction project on US 31 from 196 north all the way to about the Allegan-Ottawa County line here. There's a phase on there, the construction phase, and that had a cost increase as well. I think one of these has that described in here a little bit more. So, yep, right there. So there's a lot of buttons on this thing. So, and again, the con phase increase over 25%. That requires a MPO committee action to approve that cost increase. The next phase here is M40 between 136th Street and 48th Street. This is kind of just outside of the MPO, but it kind of tapers into the MPO by Hamilton. That project has a lot of different agencies involved: Allegan County Road Commission, the school board down there. It includes a new traffic signal at, I believe, 136 and M40. So there's a lot of work there. There's a right-of-way phase. Doesn't mean we're requiring, swaths of right-of-way. It just means we're trying to work with a couple of adjacent property owners to negotiate some parcels, or at least part of a parcel, to install the traffic signal poles and some other items in that as well. So that increased by 25%. Full disclosure, it wasn't a lot to begin with, so it didn't take much to trigger that 25% threshold anyway. Then last on our list is a new project. That's just a standard capital preventative maintenance project that we included on the list for the upcoming tip cycle as well. So it's a chip seal, I believe, on M40. So it's a new phase, requires MPO action. And I think the next slide, it's questions. But are there any questions regarding these three projects at all? Or anything not on this amendment list? I think that'll require a separate action first. Before.
Yes, so we are looking for a motion to approve the fiscal year 2020 to 2023 TIP amendments as presented.
Support.
Moved by John
Who
and
was first and who was second? Ken and John.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
All right, and as promised, I'm not done yet. So another thing is, since we're moving into the new TIP 2023, so you have that overlap here, 2023 out to 2026. All MPOs in the state are doing this right now. Kind of what we've done in the past, and I think what we're trying to continue to do, is we'd like to kind of have a preliminary approval of MDOT's projects that are within this MPO boundary using federal aid, and just have the concurrence so that when the MACC staff develop their TIP report, the actual report itself, which includes environmental justice analysis, fiscal constraint, kind of the whole slew of things here, MDOT projects are already kind of included in there. There's always some minor changes that'll happen at the end, right before the final document is approved, but at least this will give you kind of the overview of what MDOT's expected to program in the new TIP cycle. So, and of course I have a presentation to go along with that. Date's a little wrong, but that's okay. MDOT, for those not familiar with this, MDOT has a 5-year transportation program. That's a state law. So every year we add a new project on to the end of the year, or a new year at the end of the plan, and it becomes a new 5-year program. So it's an annual program. The current one we're on is on fiscal year 22 through 2026. Kind of see that the years line up for the most part. And then the projects are listed by MDOT region, the MACC area coordinating councils within the Grand region. I call it the grandest of regions, but it's the Grand region. I'll slide to the next page here. So there you go. Yep, there's the map. Try to give an approximate location. We develop these projects. It's listed by region, then by counties, and also the way our region structures are around the state. Some of you might be familiar with that West Michigan, or the Regions of Prosperity Initiative, my apologies. But our region aligns with the West Michigan Prosperity Alliance boundaries. So it's the same 13 counties. You also have the regions, and you have transportation service centers. The regions are responsible for kind of the overall programming of the jobs, the planning, hence me, and the TSCs, transportation service centers, that you'll see show up here, are responsible for kind of construction of those projects. So I think the MACC's on the boundary have a couple here, down here. So you'll have the GR TSC and the Muskegon TSC staff that'll occasionally come here to talk about specific projects. So a couple of maps. I don't think we've printed them off because it was just going to be pretty easy to talk about it here. But essentially we have projects that are based on remaining service life, an acronym, RSL. So how much life is left in the pavement We do this statewide. That's what our money is focused on. We're preservation focused. So you can kind of tell by our region, we have a whole list of trunk lines. Green means that everything, the roads for the most part, got a lot of service left in it. Yellow means probably like 5 to 8 years. Red means it's got pretty much urgent needs upcoming. So when we try to align our projects, you'll kind of see that some of the red ones, like 196, which is already reconstructed now, so it's already outdated, but a couple of those red roads will show up as projects. So same with like 196 Business Loop, there'll be a project assigned to it. 196 between Zeeland and Hudsonville, there's a project assigned to it. So that's, for the most part, how our program is designed, essentially, even though it's not 100% perfect, because like everybody else, there's not enough money to go around. So again, limited state and federal funding sources. As again, focused on preservation. We just don't go in and reconstruct everything. That would be expensive and probably not realistic to begin with. So we use what we call mix of fixes. We have something that's kind of shorter term but cheaper and more quick fixes, kind of like like crack sealing, chip sealing. Again, it's based on the type of road condition that's out there. Then you kind of go all the way up to a full rehabilitation and reconstruct. Over the last couple of years, Holland has seen a lot of that, especially on the interstate routes. 196 between the Kalamazoo River up to about M40. It was a full reconstruct. 196 between Zeeland and Hudsonville is going to be a full reconstruction project. And I believe US 31 is going to be kind of a mix of both. Reconstruction on some segments and then a rehabilitation on the segment up to the Allegan-Ottawa County line. Also, as it's an annual program, it's an annual 5-year program. We're also starting to look at 2027, using remaining service life to identify what are some needs out there. Again, very preliminary, really out there quite a ways, but there's a couple projects in the MACC that I think we're looking at. We have one on 31 northbound. I think, Steve, we've talked in the past about that project, just kind of identifying some strategies or things to look at. But, and it's not going to be incorporated with this tip because it ends in 26, but just kind of some other things to keep an eye on as we're moving forward. Maybe one other note I'd like to point out too with these maps is that when we say a year, I think these were sent out in the agenda packet, so we didn't actually print them off, but the year relates to obligation year, not construction year. And the best analogy I can think of is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. When you get the Christmas bonus, you're going to build a swimming pool, but you don't build it right at Christmas. You're going to have to wait until the ground thaws out, essentially. So essentially the same concept, a lot less swearing, a lot less craziness to it, but that's the idea. That's the year we get the check, and then we'll do the construction next year, 99% of the time, or pick a percentage. Most of the time, that's what that relates to. So what else are we on here? So a couple other closing remarks here. The trunk line projects that have federal aid, just like the locals, just like transit, just like everyone else, is included in this MPO's Transportation Improvement Program. A lot of our projects include several different phases, like preliminary engineering. If it's a bridge, it's got a structure to it, so preliminary engineering, construction engineering, and then construction phases. So there's a lot of different phases. There may be other different phases as well, depending on the project, like right away, like the M40 project, kind of at the southeast corner of the region. A lot of different requirements of how this is included. If it's all state funding, usually, like state funding PE phases, just engineering at our office, those are usually not included in the tip. But those policies are the same as what the locals and others, are adhering to as well. And finally, I think on our last page here is just some other maybe disclaimers, as I want to call them, but. Just like today, we approved some amendments as we go through the scoping process, as we look at kind of other needs that are out there, because not everybody knows everything that's underground. As we continue to develop the project, there's inevitably going to be probably a cost increase or some changes to the project. And that's why we have tip amendments, and that's what we'll bring them forward. Projects and estimates, that's probably the real disclaimer. Those are estimated based on today's dollars, probably likely to go up in some instances. It's like everything else, but these are based on remaining service life needs as well. And then just for grins, we included the bonded projects as well. So those are in there. So it's kind of a lot I threw at you here, but I think there's a list that was sent out in the agenda. It has all the MDOT projects kind of pulled from the JobNet report, which includes all the projects. And we're just asking for approval to include in the draft tip for for approval, essentially. So if there's any questions, I can answer them. I know it's a lot of information out there.
Are you requesting approval of your tip right now?
Of the projects for inclusion into the NPO studies.
I will move that.
I'll support it.
Tom and Terry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right. I guess the other one, I think I'm done with comments, but Happy New Year, everyone. I don't know if Luke wants to take over with anything. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Any questions for Tyler in general? Okay. Luke, anything to share?
Sure, just on a separate note, last time I was here, I said I'd give, a little bit of update on the new funding for IIJA. So for fiscal year 22, we're still working on numbers for 23 and 26. For fiscal year 22, which we're in right now, we did get an increase in funding. Mara sent out the details, I believe, last week. So we're looking at about $400,000, a little over that in the new funding. So that will either have to go to any new projects that'll likely have to be shovel ready, essentially, or added on to any overmatched existing projects in the TIP. So just keep that in mind. And that will go through the TIP committee next month, and then any changes will come back to this committee next month as well. So.
When you say overmatched, are you saying where the local unit has put up more than its customary share?
Right. So with the funds we're talking about, in 80% federal, 20% local split is what's typical. When I say overmatch, I mean the locals are putting in more than their 20%.
Okay.
And that can vary on whatever project by project basis.
So we could use some of these dollars to bring them back to 20%.
Mm-hmm.
That could inevitably result in a new project, because if you build up enough of that local funds, it may be enough match for a new project,
Exactly.
potentially.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, yeah, it'll be good to see some of those dollars flowing into the local area. So thank you for that update. Any specific questions for Luke? Okay, if not, we will move on to Project Clarity update. And Kelly from the Outdoor Discovery Center. It's a little odd for me to say Kelly. Since Kelly had been at the MACC for so many years. But go ahead.
Okay. So I just want to run through a couple quick annual reports. So for fiscal year 21, the total maximum daily load, I guess the formatting got a little messed up. So the total maximum daily load, this report covers fiscal year, so October 1st of 2020 through September 31st of 21. Those of you that were on the board in 21, remember we had updated the voluntary agreement that the MACC has with the state Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy in January, so about a year ago. And part of that agreement is that we submit an annual report of our progress. And so that report is a summary of the non-point source reductions that we estimate from the best management practice installations. And then we also include information from our point source discharges of phosphorus, as well as the monitoring data. So I'm just going to share some highlights and summaries of that data.
Kelly?
Yeah.
The full screen is blank.
Oh. Well.
Up there, Kelly, just press the button again.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't do anything. I mean, I heard the projector stop running. Well, I can run through the information without showing you slides. They're just, you'll miss all my pretty pictures. Yeah, I mean, some of them, well, that's, the TMDL is not in that report. It looks like something is happening. Okay. Yeah, maybe we should have used the MACC projector, but so as it's coming back, maybe you'll see something. So just a summary of kind of the efforts on the non-point source side of things. The best management practices that we focus on installing primarily are through the MACC funded grants. So our major projects over the past year were some two-stage channels, one funded by MACC's Great Lakes Commission grant, the other funded through Project Clarity. Both were projects done with the Ottawa County Water Resources Commissioner. And then the other effort was putting in cover crops through a Great Lakes Commission grant. So with those practices, just shy of 1,000 pounds of phosphorus we modeled. And then I have a total there since 2012, and that total I've been tracking since I've started at the MACC. We have numbers prior to that, but they're kind of all over the place. So about 33,000 pounds per year that we've been able to estimate through all of these non-point sources. Now, there's a lot of assumptions in that number. We don't know that all of those practices have continued, so it's not, 100% accurate to say that we're reducing phosphorus by 33,500 pounds per year. But if all of those practices are in place and functioning, that's our best guess. Our goal with the TMDL was to get to 91,000 pounds per year. So if we've are confident that these best practices are still in place, we're about a third of the way there. So certainly making progress. And then along with that reduction goal, we have kind of our ultimate goal of the inputs on an annual basis as well as the inlet concentration. It's really difficult to measure the inputs, so we really go based off of that inlet concentration. So what we're trying to achieve is an interim goal of 50 parts per billion. Ultimately, we want to be lower than that, but right now we're looking for 50. And I'll share some of the monitoring data. So on the point source sides of things, so these are permitted industrial discharges of phosphorus. We really have only two major dischargers, the two wastewater or clean water treatment plants in Holland and Zeeland, and then a third, Mead Johnson, now RB, is another minor contributor. So they track those numbers. They're permitted by the state. They have to keep really good records so we can get exact numbers from them of how much phosphorus they are putting out into the watershed. So within the total maximum daily load, they are allocated up to 20,000 pounds per year of that 55,000 pound goal. So from the graph here, you can see they're pretty consistently, it's well below that. There's some years that are higher than others, and they've been able to explain those differences. But ultimately, with the point sources, at this point, we're really not concerned about that, and there's really not a whole lot that we can do to reduce the point sources. We have to focus on those non-point sources. So on the monitoring side of things, the state does monitor every other year. We only have data most recently from 2012, so we're still waiting to get data from 2014, 2016, 2018, 2020. I've been told numerous times that report is coming and still haven't seen it yet. And then when Project Clarity started in 2013, the Grand Valley Annis Water Resources Institute has been monitoring. So what you see here is the state data through 2012. That red line is that 50 interim goal. And then on the Grand Valley data, they show it a little bit differently. So it's more of kind of like stoplight. So if we were in that yellow, we'd be meeting the goal of that 50. And so the red bars show where the lake is exceeding that. But the general trend is that we're going the right way, right? The in-lake concentration of phosphorus is coming down, not where we need it to be yet, but the trend is in the right direction. And then Hope College has also been doing some monitoring. I don't have a pretty graph from them, but just for comparison's sake, in their reporting year is a little bit different. So June to July, they were getting about 102 parts per billion on average. It ranged from 50 to 300. But their data is at least in line with what Grand Valley is seeing. We will get Grand Valley's 21 data, usually in February, so the next month or so. So when that report is available, we'll share it out with the policy board. Okay, so that was the TMDL report. Any questions about that? Yeah.
Where do you have the numbers on where we were back 2012, 2013 in parts per billion versus where we are right now, and because you said you were headed in the right direction, and I looked at all of that stuff and it was baffling to me to try to figure out where we were and where we are.
Right, yeah, and some of this, the data here shows that. So at least from the Grand Valley monitoring, we were closer to about 150 parts per billion in 2013, and then I think it was about 85, 90 in 2020.
So we've reduced that by about half.
So it's coming down.
Okay, that's great. All right, thank you.
Yeah, but there's quite a bit of fluctuation, and it's really highly dependent on how much rain we get, because that non-point source phosphorus is really delivered by how much the rain. But yet and that's, I didn't explain the gray bars on Grand Valley's graph, that's the precipitation from each year. There is no significant relationship between precipitation and the amount of phosphorus, but what you can see from here is the response of the system. In years where we've had really high rain, we're not getting the high spikes of phosphorus that we used to back in the early 2000s and earlier on that graph. So it's not a significant relationship, but we know that the phosphorus is really precipitation driven or runoff driven. So, yeah.
Kelly, do we have enough data to see if there's a direct benefit from the best management practices you've been using in agriculture to reduce phosphorus loading? And then the other question is, periodically we do dredging of Lake MACC. Does that impact the readings that you get? Does it make it better or worse or no impact?
Sure. So with the best management practices, we don't measure them directly, we only model those. So we don't actually take like water quality readings from the edge of a farm field. We hope to see the impact in these monitoring numbers, like what is the concentration in the streams, in the lake. It's very expensive to do that kind of, they call it edge of field monitoring. So we don't have any direct data from, we put cover crops on this farm field, how much phosphorus is being reduced. We model that. But we know based on the amount of conservation that's going on the ground, most of it is happening because of those agricultural practices. So that's what's showing up in this monitoring data, that it is effective. It's again not getting us where we need to be, but there's not we don't directly measure it, we just infer from the data basically. And then with the dredging activity, I mean, I guess there's a timing issue there of when that dredging is happening versus when the water samples are taken, because certainly that the activity of dredging is going to stir up the sediments and could release phosphorus back into the water. There's phosphorus that's dissolved in the water and phosphorus that's attached to the sediment particles. And so when they do the monitoring, this is total phosphorus. So they look at all types of phosphorus that are in the water, not just the dissolved, not just the particulate that's attached to sediment. So the dredging activity would certainly resuspend some of that particulate phosphorus and increase the total phosphorus numbers. But most of this data is based on, like they go out once a month and pull a sample. So if dredging had happened the day before, the number probably would be higher, but If dredging had happened 3 weeks ago, it probably would have settled out and wouldn't show up in the data. I'm not sure that they're looking at that as far as the timing of when activities occur, because certainly if we had a big rain event that flushed phosphorus in, that would impact the data too. Typically they're sampling during dry weather though, so they're trying to get it without that rain influence, but I don't know if they've looked at dredging. So. All right, any other questions? Okay. All right, so then I just wanted to highlight some other activities that occurred over the past year. So you do have a printed copy of the annual report. I think there was a digital one provided in the email packet. It's also posted on the MACC website, and we did provide a summary of this at the watershed annual meeting on December 9. But just some highlights of activities over the year. Our outreach and education efforts have, in 21 continued to be hampered by COVID restrictions, so a lot less community outreach events, kind of the ones that we typically would go to where there's, lots of vendors set up at Collin Park or other park locations. We were able to do a couple with Ready for School, and then National Night Out did happen in the City of Holland this past year, so we were there for that. And then some other activities, some newer things this year that we'll also be doing in the summer of 22 is working with Hope College on some watershed camps for summer, both with teachers to get teachers comfortable teaching about watershed topics, taking students outside. And then we also did a camp for middle school students. And so you see pictured there the teachers inside doing some activities. And then the group of middle schoolers did a farm tour at Dykey's Farms. So we helped put that together. Excuse me. On the volunteer side of things, again, somewhat limited because of COVID, but we were able to get out. Can you get my water? With Hope College students to do some storm drain stenciling. Thank you. So they stenciled storm drains around the Hope College campus, and then we did several river cleanups in the spring and fall, and some additional cleanups with Hope College and Girl Scouts, and then also the Holland Youth Advisory Council did a beach cleanup. On stormwater management, we're continuing to work with the City of Holland on some curb cut rain gardens and a rainscaping program. And we worked through some permitting on some city retrofit projects at City Hall and Collin Park. Didn't quite get those permissions in place to do construction in 21, but they are in place now, so we'll be doing construction in 22. And then we did host a 5th annual Green Stormwater Infrastructure Seminar at the Holland Civic Center. The agricultural program, again, we just have that Great Lakes Commission grant. So this is where a lot of those phosphorus reductions are coming from, the cover crops. We did a little more acres in the fall of 21 compared to 2020, and then working on a grass waterway design. Again, not everything came through to be able to do construction in 21. That will be constructed in 22. And we've been working with the conservation districts to provide the technical assistance to farmers, and they've been phenomenal to work with. And then specifically to Project Clarity, there are some copies of a Project Clarity annual report on the back table. But so these are kind of other projects outside of the MACC grants. So working on that 2-stage channel in the Harlem Drain with the Ottawa County Water Resources Commissioner. ODC has received some funding to do some more stream bank work in Peters Creek. Still waiting to get a contract signed for that. The iron slag filters, though there are several more that have gone in to do phosphorus removal from agricultural tile lines. So Grand Valley is doing monitoring on those, so that continues. We were able to bring back an in-person 21 water festival on Windmill Island that thankfully the island wasn't flooded and we could have people in person, so it worked out well. It was a great day. And then Project Clarity also hired Grand Valley to do a social survey this year to just get a sense of the community's attitudes and perceptions of water quality. So we'll be using the results of that social survey to update our public education and outreach plan, which we've already started working on. And I think that is all I have there. So again, you've got the printed reports, the Project Clarity ones on the back table, but I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you'd have right now.
Any questions, Kelly? Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. Nice job answering the questions, and sorry we probably should have let you go a few minutes before. I was a little concerned about being able to continue, but thanks. Okay, moving on to the administrative issues. We have our financial report attached. And try to answer any questions. I think other than time of year, you know, our expenses are low, and some of the grant money, I think we're still waiting for that to come in. All in all, we're in good shape there. If there's no questions about that, the MACC team members would like to request a policy revision for signing checks. Since its inception 20 years ago, I think, we've had it set up where the director signs checks up to 1,000, and then you have to chase somebody down to get a second signature for anything over 1,000. So after talking to our accountant, we felt 3,000 would be a reasonable number. The director doesn't sign any checks without an invoice being presented to match that check. So I think, you know, we wouldn't be necessarily giving up anything on checks and balances and those kind of things. So maybe a minor thing for policy, but just figured we'd run it through here. If I can get a motion, unless you have any questions or concerns.
I'll make that motion to adopt this policy increasing.
Okay, thanks, Howard. Can you get a second?
I'll support that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Staffing update, so we have a couple of staffing updates. We've been working on a couple different fronts. One, trying to find a new executive director. For the first couple months, we kind of thought about looking at, you know, there are some of these retired folks that don't mind coming in to run as a part-time executive director, just at least on a temporary basis. But that didn't quite work out, so then we decided to engage GovHR and get an unlimited engagement. Long story short, we had 10 candidates roughly, and all the folks on the interview team independently, you know, made the recommendations. 2 clearly stood out. One was Pat McGinnis, who is currently the city manager for Grand Haven. He's been there for 19 years. And the other is Jason Latham, who is currently working for a private company, but prior to that was at Berrien County for I think about 3 years, and then prior to that had a lot of experience working with MDOT on different projects, has won many regional awards, And then when Steve was the executive director of the MAC, he had worked extensively with Jason as well, and he actually recommended Jason. It was not an easy decision by any means, because they both had different things that they brought to the table. I think if it came to, from a very long-term perspective, and we had a lot of technically qualified staff, and larger staff on board, Pat would potentially have been the choice. But given that we're a small group and have had some turnover, we just want to ensure that whoever steps in there isn't lost in terms of, they may have leadership qualities, but you need to know all the things that the transportation planners do. And so after we spoke about it for probably a couple hours, and then slept on it, and then concluded that we would like to recommend Jason. I apologize, I don't have his resume with me, but I did email it last night, so I don't know if everybody had a chance to look at that. The salary range that we had posted, I believe, was between, I don't remember the low end for sure, but I think it was 90 to 105 was the range. And so what I'm requesting on behalf of the interview group is approval from this group to have discussions with him. And, there may be some back and forth, but to try to negotiate something that is within those guidelines. But certainly open it up for questions. Steve, do you want to add anything, since you did work with him?
Well, no, as you mentioned, Jason has an extensive time with the Michigan Department of Transportation, and during that tenure, he worked out of the Kalamazoo Southwest Region office, and part of the time he was there, a portion of the MACC area was in the Southwest region. So then he would interact with the MACC, representing the Southwest region on different things. So that is a wonderful person. I think he's, committed, certainly technically well qualified in terms of the transportation planning process. He understands it is a process. He understands that you work with jurisdictions in advancing the goals of the organization, and he certainly, I saw him do that, and he's working with this group as well as other groups in that regard. So I think he's a person who can step right in and take off from day one.
Tom? All right. Can I get a motion from anyone, or any other questions, discussions, concerns?
Well, if you need a motion, I can make a motion that you proceed with the process.
Yeah.
And that is, you're going to discuss making an offer to this individual?
Right.
I would make that motion that we proceed.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. The second part of the staffing update is a little not as exciting. Sorry to put you on the spot there, Mara, but Mara's been with us since November 15. Unfortunately, not long after she started here, she was lured away by the vibrancy of the big city of Grand Rapids. I guess moving back from Chicago to Holland was too much of a shock. But Mara has been nothing but gracious. She's given us 2 months to make, she'll be at 3 months, but from the time she informed us, she's given us 2 months. She's working actively with MDOT to ensure that there's all the plans are in place, that whoever comes in knows what they're doing. And we've already interviewed, with Mara's help and Judy's help, an individual from another MPO that I cannot name at this point, that we hope will start and hopefully have some overlap there, to help make that transition easier for that next person. I think probably the labor market being what it is out there, is affecting us as well. And when you have 3 to 5 people in a group, you lose 40% with 1 or 2 people. So we'll have to be innovative in thinking, perhaps, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn and maybe a little early, but I think some of the smaller MPOs are going to have to look to each other to see if there's a way we can collaborate and support each other. So we wish Mara nothing but the best. We have a 30-day return policy. So if you don't like it there, you may come back in 30 days.
I thought she signed a 5-year contract.
I wish now. So, thank you, Mara. Yeah.
Thank you.
And please tell them it's not about me.
It's not about me.
Like you said, I have accepted another position that I think will be a good fit for me, so appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate it, Mara, all your help, in the last couple of weeks here, getting everything in order before you move on to the next step. So I think we're in good standing, so appreciate all that.
Yeah, and Luke and you guys at MDOT have been terrific. I can tell you that from day one, filling in and talking to these guys, there's this perception in government, in the public, that government isn't good at public service. They're at customer service, sorry. If you've dealt with them, these folks at MDOT, it's totally different. So, at least my experience. So, thank you guys. We'll probably still lean on you for a little bit. So.
Coordinating's in the name, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, host,
Oh,
Your-
well,
up to
okay,
you.
thanks. Well, welcome, really, we should have the welcome at the beginning of the meeting, really at the end, but anyway, I still welcome you to Howland Township this morning. What I want to do is basically give some highlights of last year, seeing that we're only on the 10th of the following month, so we can easily give you some, at least a bird's eye view of what's happened here in the last year or so. And I guess the main thing that I can talk about is the economic activity, which has really kept us very, very busy. We've had a total of 578 building permits issued in last year, with a total construction value of $147 million as compared to $100 million in 2020. So basically, it's easy arithmetic. It's 47% increase over 2020. So there's tons of activity, obviously, all over this community, especially in our township. Some of the major infrastructure projects that we handled last year was we've approximately 2.3 miles of local and subdivision road resurfacing, 3.5 miles of pathway construction and repairs. Also, there was a replacement of an existing 16-inch water main at the corner of Perry Street and 104, 106, etc. Industrial facility exemption certificates, which under Act 198, of course, that's something that keeps us pretty busy too, and it's an indication of the activity that we have seen here. There's been, in last year, there was 8 certificates awarding a total of $50.9 million in real property value. Under park improvements, we made some improvements at Beechwood Park. including a new restroom, expanded parking, and additional lighting. This is ongoing now and should be completed in the spring. Our Hawthorne Park, I don't know if you're familiar where that is, but that's directly behind Lowe's truck stop out there, which is a nice little park. We're going to build a new restroom there as well, expanded parking and greenway trailhead improvements. And this is in cooperation with the Ottawa County Parks and Outdoor Discovery Center. Yeah, that's, obviously, right now we're going through a housing analysis. We've hired McKenna, which is a familiar name in this community as far as consulting. They're taking a look at housing demands within not only our township, but in the community, but specifically Holland Charter Township, obviously. I don't know, most of you are probably aware that we're currently in a moratorium on zoning changes which apartment developments have requested. We have plenty of acreage to build apartments, over 400 acres available today, but when it comes to changing zoning and our comprehensive plan to accomplish that, we put a moratorium and a delay on that just to take another look at that and see where we want to go from this point. And we should know the results of that in the next month or so. As far as activity, that's pretty much what I have to say today. I just want to mention too the passing of Marion Hoovey. I don't know if you're familiar with Marion, but he passed away recently in December. He served on our planning commission and many other committees within our Holland Township for about 50 years. And over 20 of those years he served as planning commission chairman. So we're going to miss Marion a lot. He actually was planning to retire at the end of the year, but suddenly took sick and passed away. But just wanted to bring his name up today in memoriam of Marion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. I think you also have a new attraction in Holland Township that finally opened.
Popeye, you mean
Popeye,
Popeye?
yeah.
Yeah, we can't forget that, I'll tell you. No, I guess it's pretty popular. I haven't gone by there yet, but
Yeah.
I understand it's generating quite a bit of interest.
Yeah, every time I drive by there, there's at least 2 lines all the way around the building. Although Tom did mention that they haven't mastered the art of moving people along quickly, so
Yeah.
could be a little bit of both, honeymoon phase plus learning curve.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments from members? Okay. If not, our next meeting is Feb 28, 2022 at Zeeland Township Hall. If I can get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Terry, okay, second. Nate?
Terry and Nate?
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Well, thank you again, and, I think I said it in my email, but thank you for your support. I know sometimes it feels like it's a constant, 2 steps ahead, 1 step back. But I'm very, very confident that with the people around this table that we will be a bigger, better organization within a few years. So, thank you.
Well, thank you for your leadership,
No.
Marcus, really.
Yep. Judy's the real executive director. I think if you know Judy, you know I'm not making this up.
Pretty good, you.
Yeah.